Hey gang, Uncle Todd here with Sunny as always, and this is my 1 year anniversary. My first video was done on the last Saturday of April, and although this isn't the exact date, it is the last Saturday of April for this year. And because my first flick was The Naked Witch, I thought I would do a similarly themed kind of film, in a way. So, excuse me. We are heading back to the hedonistic 70s. Thank you. For a salaciously silly film called Invasion of the Bee Girls. It starts out with a man being found dead in a no-tell motel. And the autopsy has some interesting results.
Anything else?
Among other things, coronary thrombosis.
Meaning?
A clot in the right and left ventricle, formed by coagulation of the blood, due from extreme exhaustion.
Was he fooling around?
Was he ever?
Apparently, he died of sexual exhaustion. But officially heart attack. And because this was a scientist at the Brandt Institute that does government work, they send out one of their special agents to look into the matter. Now, this is the era of early James Bond in the 70s. We had just had Sean Connery's return in Diamonds Are Forever, but had yet to get Roger Moore in Live and Let Die. Sorry. But we're doing an American secret agent. So, who do we have that is suave and debonair like Sean Connery? Well, it can't be Dean Martin. He wasn't doing those things anymore. He wasn't doing Matt Helm. Could we get Cary Grant? No, I think he'd retired. What about David Niven? He might be good. Who did they go with?
Neil Agar, State Department Security.
Oh, yeah.
William Smith. Interesting. Mostly played villains, especially in the 60s. A lot of biker flicks. Although he was great in The Ultimate Warrior. And he and Robert Taylor had a hellacious fight in the climax of Forever and Amber. So, yeah. Good actor. Slav secret agent? Oh, well, it's America. We're more two-fisted. Anyway, he comes just in time to find out that now one of the local factory workers in the town where the Institute is located has also died from this mysterious affliction of having sexed themselves to death. Well, he goes to see the victim's assistant, and we get a pure 70s reaction.
Hey, I'm really sorry. This place is really impressive. Who's in charge?
I am.
Really?
Yes.
A female scientist? Unheard of. But it was the 70s. So, you know, we've been making strides and all that. Sorta. Anyway, he doesn't learn much from her, but her name is Julie Zorn, and they will become closer as the film progresses. You know, love interest stuff. And later, we get an inkling of just what's going on in this town.
Well, hello. I didn't see you there.
Thanks.
No, really, it's kind of dark out here. Hey, you having some trouble?
Nothing you couldn't fix, officer.
That's his O-face? Never mind. With this latest death, a huge meeting at the town hall was called for townspeople and the Institute people alike, and they are given some, under the circumstances, not bad advice.
I must stress the importance of total, I repeat, total sexual abstinence.
Yeah, that goes over about as well as expected.
Now just hold it right there. This is the stupidest damn thing I've heard of yet.
And guess who the next victim will be?
Mr. Braddock,
Yeah?
I'm Gretchen Grabowski.
I believe you knew my late husband.
Mind if I walk with you?
Meanwhile, let's see, what was his name? Dr. Merker, the one who was talking at the town hall. He has some suspicions about the cause, and he asks Agar to meet him at a specific place that night. And Agar and Dr. Zorn, while they're waiting for him, have some small talk, a few smooches, and are there in time to see an untimely end to Dr. Merker.
Jesus, it's Dr. Merger.
Oh my God, they're killing him!
He just likes to be involved. Well, Agar drops Dr. Zorn off, has her run to a phone booth to call the police and an ambulance, and he gives chase. Loses the car when he finds it, abandoned. Returning to the scene, he learns from the sheriff about that factory worker from earlier and his fate. So, he sends Dr. Zorn back to his car while he goes to make a phone call. Unfortunately, some of the other factory workers who were friends of the latest victim decide they're going to take out their frustrations on Dr. Zorn with the reasoning, well, she can't kill all of us. So while they try to have their way with her, and because we need a good action sequence, Agar shows up just in time. After beating the crap out of those creeps, you don't need to bite me. You don't. Yes, you do. Okay. He needs to bite me. Again, after beating up those creeps, Agar takes Dr. Zorn back to her home and then visits Dr. Merker's office, where he discovers a secret love nest in behind the bookcase and his gay lover.
And you don't have any idea where Merger was tonight? None at all.
He wasn't with a man. He was with a girl. I saw them as they drove through town early this evening.
What'd she look like?
I don't know. It was too dark. She was driving his car, that's all I could make out.
You're sure, Joe?
Well, what the hell you think made me notice in the first place?
Hey, tell me something, will you? Could he make it with a woman?
way.
With that bit of information, he lets Joe go. The next morning, everyone finds out that the Pentagon has declared a military quarantine around the town and the Institute. Nobody's happy about that. But Dr. Harris, who we're introduced to, but she's been kind of in the background for the most part, goes up to another of the scientists, Dr. Klein, and invites him to her place for dinner. That night, while he's enjoying dinner, nose is really itching. Agar and Dr. Zorn review some of Dr. Merker's video or film on the mating habits of insects, and we get a pretty clever bit of cross-cutting.
Examples of the female killing the male during mating are numerous in the insect world.
I love that. Bit of a buzzkill. But anyway, as expected, Dr. Klein dies in the fit of passion. And that's when we first see the black eyes of the bee woman. It's in the clip, the start of the video. Anyway, after he's dead, they call his wife and lure her to the lab. Now, meanwhile, Agar has finished the film, and he sends Dr. Zorn home and then goes to Dr. Harris's lab to ask her some questions. She's kind of hesitant, but she's in the middle of an experiment, but she acquiesces because he's not going to go away.
How many times does a queen bee mate?
Only once,
Just once?
and only to reproduce. Once accomplished, she never mates again.
Yes, thank you, Doctor.
Getting back to our experiment, we now see just what it is that's been causing these crazy women that sex men to death. I'm gonna try and show you the basics of it, but it's gonna be difficult. This scene is full of nudity, and I'm just not gonna be able to put enough black bars in it to even make for you even to see what's going on. So bear with me. Basically, it's radiation covered in beeswax, covered in bees, more radiation. I'll show you.
Come on.
And there you have it. A new bee woman. Well, next morning, Klein's body is discovered in a factory. And the sheriff goes to notify his wife and gets a very strange reaction.
Well, there's nothing else for me to do here. I better be going.
No, wait. Stay a while. Keep me company in my time of need.
But the sheriff is made of sterner stuff than the other victims, and he escapes. Agar runs his theory of gene mutation causing women to become bee women and killing the men with sex to some of the other geneticists in the institute, and they say theoretically yes, but there is no way it could be done. And even if it could, how would they even detect such a thing? Well, Dr. Zorn realizes that the gamma radiation would still be in their systems and they could use a detector for it. So they come up with a plan at the latest funeral.
The house of our tabernacle be dissolved. We have a building from God, a house not made with hands, eternal in the heavens. Inasmuch as it has pleased Almighty God to take from among us our beloved brother, we commit his body to the earth, ashes to ashes, dust to dust.
Well, looks like they were spotted. Meanwhile, another scientist is being seduced, this time by his own wife. But there was a bit of a table turning in this one.
You're part of it. You and the others.
Dan, what are you talking about?
Shouldn't have been wearing that nylon as a scarf, I guess. Yep, they did both each in. Kind of poetic in a way. Well, now that Dr. Harris is aware that Dr. Zorn is aware of her, and knowing Agar probably knows the truth, Dr. Zorn is the next obvious candidate for bee womanish. So, she's abducted, and Agar, realizing this, rushes to the rescue and defeats them rather easily. Yep, simple as that. Well, he grabs Dr. Zorn, gets her out of the room, shuts the door, and the rest of the women are left to die from the radioactive steam that is permeating the place. And then we get our one good shock scene. And in the denouement, we find that the radiation that was used in the process to create the female bee hybrid, it left the women sterile. They could not reproduce. And yet the bee mutation was causing them to constantly try to mate, which is why there were so many dead bodies. And I guess she was continually making more bee women so that maybe this time they could procreate. But after that big explanation, we cut to Agar and Zorn finally consummating a relationship with a bit of a what if ending. no. Did she receive enough of the process that she's a bee woman now too? We may never know. I like the use of Thus Spoke Zarata, I think it's called. It was used in 2001 A Space Odyssey so effectively. This is very silly. Very, very silly. But it is a fun film. A lot of nudity in it, so some would say that's the only reason to watch it, because it's a pretty dumb film. But it does have some good qualities to it. It was the first credited screenplay by Nicholas Meyer, who of course would go on and become a director and scriptwriter, and would make Time After Time, as well as direct Star Trek II, and I believe Star Trek VI, as well as scripting Star Trek II, 3, 4, and 6. And it's got a really good funky soundtrack by Charles Bernstein, who probably best known for doing the score for the original Nightmare Before Elm Street. Nightmare on Elm Street. Nightmare Before Elm Street. There's some good acting in it. William Smith he's pretty good, and as you know, he's a bit of a macho kind of guy. And he was a former bodybuilder and made a bunch of biker flicks, and he's just a great screen presence. And this isn't the only bizarre horror flick he made. He also made one called Grave of the Vampire, where he was a half-human, half-vampire hybrid hunting down his father for revenge. Might have to do that one sometime. And of course, Anitra Ford as the main villainess, Dr. Harris. She has a lot of screen presence, and she had a pretty good career. She's probably best known among horror fans for playing one of the major victims who gets attacked by the zombies in Messiah of Evil in a supermarket. But I mostly remember her from the first Wonder Woman pilot with Kathy Lee Crosby, where she played a rival Amazon who fights Kathy Lee Crosby at the end of that pilot, and of course loses because she's not the hero. And but for mainstream people, they probably remember her most as one of the hostesses who showcased things on The Price is Right during Bob Barker's time. And let's see, the other Dr. Zorn was played by, pull that up there, Victoria Vetri, who did a lot of, she worked in like westerns and dramas, and had a, let's see, what were some of her other film roles that she was in? To When Dinosaurs Ruled the World. She was in Rosemary's Baby. She played the neighbor who gets thrown out the window so that Rosemary can be the devil's chosen one. And there was an inside joke during that where Rosemary asks her if she's Victoria Vetri, and she says, "No, I'm not that actress. I'm just so-and-so." But yeah, she also did a pictorial for Playboy, so there is that. And unfortunately, she ran into some trouble during the 90s, but I'm not going to go into that downbeat stuff for this. And of course, playing our sheriff was the prolific character actor Cliff Orman. Been in tons of stuff, and I like him. He's the only one that was able to fight off the women with no problem. That's fortitude. And it is an interesting theme. This film reminds me a little bit of Clint Eastwood's Play Misty for Me, which was very much a diatribe against the whole one-night stand, swinging single scene of the 70s when he hooks up with this woman who turns out to be psychotic and starts stalking him and hurting people around him. And this is a similar kind of vibe. It is a kind of a male fantasy turned nightmare. I mean, you have a lot of these characters in it, the victims, except for a couple of college-age kids. Most of them are middle-aged, balding, getting a paunch. And it's this fantasy of this beautiful woman, because all the women in this film are beautiful. Every scientist is married to a younger, beautiful woman. Amazing. But it is a fantasy of a beautiful woman seducing you, turning into a nightmare that they are going to kill you. And in its own way, it is a bit of a diatribe against the whole swinging thing of one-night stands. Unfortunately, it's also a bit of a diatribe against women in the workplace, because these women are experimenting with science and it comes to a bad end for everybody. So, but it's the 70s. And that was par for the course. Less enlightened time. But yeah, it's a no-brainer kind of film. If you actually start thinking about some of the logic in it, it makes no sense. If she keeps mating without getting pregnant, why would she make another one? She hasn't fulfilled her purpose yet. But they just wanted it to have a lot of scantily clad women around. Although I do like the look of the lab coat and sunglasses that they affect in the lab. That is it's kind of cool looking. And Anitra Ford is, she's so menacing in this at times. She was perfectly cast in this. She's kind of standoffish, kind of cold, seductive, and just a little frightening there. But I'm sure a lot of men would say, I'd die for that. Because we, as a sex, are stupid. Well, that's about all I have to say about this one. Please hit like, share, and subscribe. And stay after the credits for my favorite scene.
Abstinence isn't going to be anything new around here.
Well, if I were positive it was going to kill you, I'd do it.